Noah Webster by Jessica Mendoza, Bersale González Anzaide, Ortiz. Noah Webster was born on October 16 on the year of 1758. He grew up in the West Division of Hartford, Connecticut, which is now known as West Hartford. His father was a farmer that worked as a weaver. His mother, on the other hand, was more of a housewife. In the past, this was known as the average colonial family. Even more, Noah's parents were able to send him to Yale so that he can pursue his education. However, he did decide to leave to New Haven in 1774. Keep in mind that he was only 16 years old at the time. Successfully, he graduated in the year of 1778. Nonetheless, he wanted to go back to school and study law. Unfortunately, his parents did not have the money to pay for college anymore. Webster then decided to work as a teacher, considering all the years he had been as a student, plus his new teaching job. He then believed that the American education system should be modernized. He noticed how children were not being properly taught, along with their lack of school supplies. Students in America were even getting their books from England, pledging their Pledge of Allegiance to King George. Indeed, he was sure that America is not part of England and should be able to have books with their own Pledge of Allegiance. Therefore, in 1783, he created his own textbook. It was called A Grammatical Institute of the English Language. It was known as the Blue-Backed Speller, due to its characteristic blue cover. It was a success to help students in the English language. In 1789, Noah married Rebecca Greenleaf. They had 8 children together along with their grandchildren. They all then moved to live in Amherst, Massachusetts. Fortunately, Webster contributed to the founding of Amherst College. Further, the family, including Webster, moved back to New Haven. Without doubt, in 1801, Webster was working on definitions for the English language. He wanted to distinguish the way people in America talk and the way people from England talk. His first published edition was in 1806. The dictionary was called a Compendious Dictionary of the English Language. This book had over 37,000 vocabulary terms with brief definitions. Moreover, it took him another 22 years to finish his American Dictionary of the English Language. By the time he finished, he was over 70 years old in the year of 1828. Webster's dictionary defined about 65,000 words. Even though he passed away in 1843, he is still viewed as a very influential public figure.
Oftentimes, many people think Noah Webster had only created the first English dictionary. Not many people think he had contributed a lot. However, he did. Noah Webster was an influential man who had contributed a lot to education. He had created a unified style of the English language. Now, how did he make such a grand contribution? You have to understand that American schools in the late 1700s were not well. There were many problems with the education system at that time. The curriculum wasn't uniformed. Children of all ages were cramped into one-room schoolhouses, and oftentimes the teachers were not prepared to teach the children. Webster felt like this needed to change. He wanted to make a change to the education system. His approach to changing education was by focusing on a unified language. He had actually worked as an educator himself. However, he noticed that most of the textbooks came from England, often pledging their allegiance to King George. Many of the textbooks had actually retained more of a British focus, including the language as well. Webster thought that the American culture had grown quite differently from the British. Webster wanted to make sure that all Americans were speaking the same words, and even spelling them the same as well. This would eventually come to connect a country that was already linguistically diverse. This is what he would focus on as his life's work. Webster would eventually come to this by creating his own textbook. It was in the year of 1783 where he published his first grammar book. This would become known as the Grammatical Institute of the English Language. He wanted this textbook to help children read, write, and spell. This would also become the most popular American book of its time, selling nearly 100 million copies. Then, many years later, in the year of 1806, Webster would publish his first dictionary. This would be known as the Compendious Dictionary of the English Language. However, he would not just stop at creating these textbooks. After this, he would continue to try and improve education. His work would become a part of America's Cultural Revolution. There were many directions that Webster could have followed. Like many educational innovators, he could have focused on the poor funding schools were receiving, or the fact that teachers were poorly trained. But he didn't. Instead, he had fought for an American language and a universal education. Noah Webster, or the father of the American English language, would leave a lasting impact on language in the United States. Without Noah Webster, would we have the same American language that we have?
Noah Webster was the one who created the popular dictionary that everyone nowadays uses, and he made a big impact on American education. He is the author of spells and textbooks that have influenced the American school system from 1783 to 1875. It's important to mention that Noah Webster was an influential man who perhaps more than anyone else in history has contributed to creating a unified and unique American style of the English language. As important as that is, Webster's influence extends much further. In addition, Webster helped shape the post-Revolution American educational landscape. Webster was an innovator that wanted to change the education system to offer the students a better way of learning. Webster's contribution to the innovation of American education takes the main focus of a unified language approach. While Webster worked as a teacher, he made an observation. Then he noticed that the language most used on the school's books was British. He decided to write his own textbook in English language, which was called A Grammatical Institute of the English Language. This book was extremely successful, and it was mainly focused to teach children to read, spell, and write, but the approach was to learn in the American language. After the publication of Webster's first book, he could continue to work to improve and unify the American language. Second major contribution to American education was in the field of lexicography. One of the Webster's most important and lasting contributions to American English was to change for the better the spellings of certain groups of words from the British spelling. His ability to introduce his major classes of spelling reform into his spellers and dictionaries was crucial to their success, as they become imprinted on the minds of each new generation. Webster is considered as the first American author. All the books from Webster made an impact on the students' education and helped them to improve their English as well and their learning. To conclude the contributions of Noah Webster, he influenced on American life and language in the education system.